This content may contain material that could be distressing or triggering to some individuals, including, but not limited to, discussions of trauma, mental health, violence, abuse, or other sensitive topics. Please proceed with care.
Welcome back to the Why Mama Diaries podcast. We have our second guest. Her name is Tasha.
Tarsh.
Yep. Tash. Sorry, you were right.
Fine.
Yep. And just like before, we are one co-host down because this is Izzy's cousin. So she's still here.
Yeah, I'm here.
You
wish I wasn't, but I'm here.
We absolutely love having you in our vicinity.
Aww. We said that because she's in the room.
Yeah.
This is what happens. Everyone that meets Tarsh begins to love her more than they love me, and then I become the pit.
We've already exchanged phone numbers and
we're set. We've got playdates. Kids having playdates and stuff. The kids are going to ask.
For people meeting you for the first time, how would you describe who you are today?
Oh Jesus. That's a. I don't know, to be honest, because first time there's a lot. You put me on the spot now. This is your fault. Probably. Sorry. I don't know. In general, I'm in a much better place. So I suppose a happier person and a easygoing person and a fairly tolerable person. Yeah, I don't know. That's a hard question to answer at the moment.
First time we can answer that question.
Yeah, I was going to say.
We're going to talk about ourselves. We're like.
I know. It's like I don't know.
Yeah. Think about that.
Yeah. Might have to come back.
Maybe we'll find the answer by the time we get to the end of the interview.
Yeah. Good idea.
Can you tell us a little bit about your childhood? What happened? And what you understood about your family structure growing up?
My family structure was very messy. I know that much. We were very separated, I guess, in some ways. My childhood was very messy. There was a lot, like my mum remarried and, there was a lot of abuse there. And then my mum and I didn't have a great relationship. And then I went back to my dad, who I didn't have contact with. And there was a different kind of abuse. And then I ended up in a relationship with a much older person with another form of abuse. So my childhood was very messy growing up. It was very, destructive really. Like it was a very messy time.
What was it like reconnecting with your biological dad after so many years of not knowing him?
It was, at the time it seemed like it was good. It was a good feeling. It was a happy feeling. It was,
can you tell the story of how that happened?
Just the reconnection?
Yeah, I know it, but tell me.
Obviously you know it, yeah. So basically I had lost contact with my dad when I was about 3. My parents separated when I was about 18 months old. And when I was 11, I got home from school one day and my mum said to me, look, do you still want contact with your dad? And over the years I had asked here and there, brought it up, but it was more, if anything, I had made up stories. Like people would talk about their dads at school and I'd be like, oh yeah, my dad does this for work. Like I would make things up and have...
Kids are so resilient like that.
Yeah.
Like just...
That's it. And it's better than having to explain that you don't have a dad.
Like a protective mode.
Exactly. That's right. So I was about 11 and I got home and she was like, do you still want contact with your dad? And I went, well, yeah. She goes, all right, well, I found him. And I went, okay.
And you were 11 still, right?
Yeah. So it must have been, it was 11 because it was the year before I lived here. So, and I said, well, yeah, I want to. And she went, okay, well, I found him and he's living in Tasmania. We were in WA. She goes, he's living in Tasmania. He's remarried. They've got 2 sons. I've been in contact.
Did you and your mum speak about your dad? Like before it was just, hey, I found your dad. Did you speak much to
about him? Not really, no.
Yeah, okay.
It was always a very close topic. It was quite a surprise that she had actually done it, to be honest, because it's not something we had spoken about her looking at doing or questioning doing. There was nothing. It was from nothing to everything.
Yeah.
And she went, it must have been like a Friday after school because it wasn't, there's no way she would have made me wait days and days. But I do remember we got on the phone it must have been the next morning, like the Saturday morning or something, and we were on the phone for something like 7 hours. And just spoke about everything, like just stuff from everything to nothing. Like, and you think an 11, 12-year-old child, they don't really talk on the phone that much.
That's what I was going to say, like for that long, what was sharing? Like,
well, honestly, I couldn't remember now. I honestly couldn't even remember now. Like I know it was something that we always remembered and talked about the fact that it was such a long conversation. Like, when it wasn't like we cut off and went back, it was just a solid 6-7 hour phone call that now couldn't tell you what it was about.
Yeah.
Couldn't even tell you.
Did you enjoy the conversation?
But yeah, it was a good conversation. I have like really weird vague memories of like, you know, like in a movie where you see like segments where first they're sitting on the couch and then they're sitting here, and like I have that vision. Like I can picture myself sitting on the yellow couch talking on the phone. I can picture, so I know that I moved around the house, but the actual conversation I couldn't remember. But it was good. It was a nice thing to have. And then shortly after that, I don't have a time frame, but it must have only been a couple of weeks, few weeks at tops. Again, got picked up from school, and I've got a surprise for you at home. And like 11-year-old Tarsh went, oh, like we've got ice creams or something, like we had an ice cream dessert. Like that was the highlight of my life. And my dad was sitting in the backyard with my mum's partner Pete. I was sitting there having a gas bag and a smoke, and
so if I'm talking to him too, hey, I'm here.
Yeah, so he came over to WA from Tasmania and spent, I think it was about a week. When we got back in contact with him, we found that one of his sisters actually lived in Perth. And I had visited her a fair few times. So it must have been a few weeks, because I had visited Nikki a few times and stayed with her and had built a really good relationship with her, actually. And I still have a very good relationship with that auntie. And yeah, so when he came over, he stayed with her. And I spent a couple of the nights with them, and, we went and did things, and we went, like, I remember going out to the Pinnacles and going, we did all these different things, because she was working with a tourist company at the time, so she snuck us into all these, like, fun activities, and, we had a really good time, and, at that time it was a good relationship, it was a good, we were building those bonds. Still, at that point, I wasn't comfortable calling him Dad, and I didn't really call him anything.
Because you've got to, like, and I know this from happened to me, but you've got to like feel something for someone.
That's right.
Before you can have that relationship.
Yeah, and that's not to mention like at that pre-teen age as well. Yeah, and at that pre-teen age as well, like you sort of feel awkward as it is, let alone calling this strange man Dad. Yeah. So, so I suppose that's where that started, and then the following year I spent a year in Sydney living with my grandparents. And him and his wife and the boys came over for a wedding, so that's when I met her and the boys. And then in that year, they flew me to Tassie in the school holidays 2 or 3 times to spend time with them, and I had a great time. Like it was a good, happy bonding relationship. It was all the right things that it should have been.
Yeah. Good from a phone call to actually actioning.
Exactly. Yeah, and within a couple of years, it happened very. It all happened very quickly, and. I had contact with my brothers, who at the time were 1 and 4 or something little, like they were tiny little, babies still.
So you definitely formed a relationship with them.
That's it.
Another family.
That's right. And being that they were so little, it meant that I could form a bond with them, because it's not like they were teenagers and I was like, whatever.
Yeah.
Like,
I know that your dad's like regularly seeing you, so why would you not?
Exactly. There was no reason not to. So, I suppose that's what that looked like. Is the beginning was. Great. Blissful. Yeah. I think it was a good relationship, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're just getting to a little bit heavier. When you reflect on your teenage years, are there things you wish more people understood about the warning signs of grooming and abuse?
Yeah.
Especially from someone meant to be a parent.
Yeah, I mean, look, there aren't any warning signs. No. Like, I look back now.
As a parent, I'd like to think I've seen it and there was.
Yeah.
But
there aren't a lot of warning signs. I mean, look, don't get me wrong, there would have been times that my demeanour may have changed, or I remember my stepmom going, what's your problem? Like, why aren't you talking to him today? But not enough to make you question that something was happening.
Do you mind going into telling us what had actually happened?
So I moved. So obviously, I lived with my grandparents, and I spent another year in WA with my mum after being in Sydney. And in that year, the discussion came up of me living with my dad. I look back now and I'm like, that's probably why Mum reached out. She openly would say she'd had enough of me. So her theory was, it's your turn now. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Mum was like, it's your turn now. I've done it. I've done the hard yards.
And why would you not? To be honest,
no,
your dad. 2, he's been quite proactive in your life.
100%.
A great relationship. from one parent to another.
I do
you
not
can
hold that.
say you do it now.
That's right. I do not hold that against her in any way at all. But yeah, so I was turning 13, and the discussion came of go and spend some time over there, and it was never put like we think you should go over there. It was worded so that I felt like it was my idea.
Yeah.
Again, though, at 13,
gaslighting.
It is, but like as a mum of a 12-year-old now, I'm like, if I want him to do something, it needs to be his idea. Like,
I do it to my husband.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's not just So I get that and I respect that, and I don't hold anything against it. But yes, it was made out, this idea of going over there for 6 to 12 months and doing a year and seeing my brothers and having some time over there. So when I was, as I say, just turned 13, my birthday's around Christmas.
Did you find that like an exciting time like that? Like,
yeah.
I get to get away from mum, new life.
That
would be fun.
Of course,
You've got to be the fun parent.
Yeah, that's right. He had been the short time I'd known him, he'd been the fun parent.
Because the other parent that's not really there, like he's always
the fun parent. That's right. And then
so this would seem like a whole new adventure.
That's it. Younger brothers, which I was looking forward to spending time with. Whole new family environment. 2 parents, and plus he had, a 50-acre farm and had pigs, and here I was going, I'm set, like, I'm out of here.
This is my life.
But, if I come back. That's right, exactly.
Yeah.
And I was about to start high school, so, it all just,
it seemed like perfect time.
That's right. So I went over there, and within a few months of being there, we used to have a room it was part of the house, like you went into it from the house, but it was stairs and it was under the house.
Okay.
But it was inside, like it was
basement.
It was almost like a basement. That's right. It was like another bedroom. Like it was just, and at the time it was set up as the office and the toy room. So we had the computer desk in there. The boys' toys were all in there, and we did have a double bed in there so that when people stayed, we had somewhere to put them.
With that much land, there would be plenty of room for
Well, no, we had a house and a property. So we had the house in town, which was, admittedly, it was a massive backyard. It was like a 2-acre backyard. But then about 20 minutes away, we had the 50 acres.
Okay.
So, but yeah, it was a 3-4 bedroom, including that was like a 4-bedroom house. But yeah, so that was set up as, as a toy room and whatever. And we quite often would sit up and play computer games, and as I say, we were at a point where we were forming a relationship because we had lost so many years. The boys had a natural relationship with him because he'd been there all along, whereas for me, he made that effort, so it seemed, to form that better father-daughter relationship that we had lost. So things, little things like we'd sit up and play late night on the computer, and then it would get to the point where it's like, it's past midnight and we're exhausted, we'll just use this bed. And one night, he went from just laying next to me or giving me half a hug to putting his hand under my shirt.
That was quick.
Yeah, and it happened quite quickly. Like, I'm talking within the first 6 months of me living there. And it started off with just that, and then it would go to my boobs, or it would go to down towards my underwear, and his hand would just be in the wrong places. And initially I could just kind of move and be like, okay, maybe in his sleep he's just not realised. And that was the first instinct of, whoops, okay, he just doesn't realise who's laying next to him. He has got a wife that he's used to sleeping with. 13 years old, it is what, you just don't think.
Did you ever question it in the morning? Like, was you, hey?
No.
And because that would be awkward.
Yeah, it was too awkward of a conversation. And he was I suppose the relative part that I did forget was that he was a drunk. He was a heavy drinker. He'd have a 4-litre cask of wine every night on top of a few beers, and that was standard for him. That was standard every, afternoon to night.
So everybody just normalised
and
that.
it was just normalised. That's what he did. He had had a shoulder injury a couple of years prior, which threw him off and had him on medication, and, the alcoholism. Yeah, it just all... So that, I suppose, is very relevant. And again, another reason that I thought he's drunk, he's asleep, he's out cold. But, yeah, as I say, so one thing led to another. It just kind of started to get too much and too comfortable until it wasn't just his hands near my underwear. It was his hands in my underwear and his hands trying to, get into places that parents' fingers should not belong. And once it happened the first time, I remember going to school and talking to a friend and saying, this is what's happening. And I remember not going into detail, but I actually emailed her through the school email, which very much surprises me now that wasn't flagged.
Because I would have thought something. It's the something flag now.
I have a feeling that when you were that age, because you're 4 years older than me, I don't think they had the systems.
No, it wasn't being investigated. Like things weren't being checked.
I don't think they had the systems in place.
No. And again, it doesn't. Like I'm not bothered by the fact that the school didn't pick it up.
No,
like, it's not like I'm sitting there going, "Why didn't they do more?" I don't. That's not it at all. I'm just saying, like looking at what is available now, it's like, wow, that wasn't picked up.
Yeah.
But I remember emailing her through the school email saying, my dad's touching me, and she said to me, like, you need to tell him. You need to have this conversation. And I'm like, I just don't think I can. And she was like, look, write him a letter, tell him what's happened, and come over to my place for the weekend. You can hand him the letter when he drops you off, so that you're not with him when he reads it. And then you also give him a day or so to process it or to work out what is going on before you have to see him again, because I was convinced, like, he's asleep, like he's out cold, he doesn't know what he's doing.
And also that you're dad.
And that's right,
who
I had lost, and I had lost for so long. Like, I think that's the biggest part in all of this, and I think that's what made it so easy for him to groom, because
I don't lose him, but you wanted to keep him there, but not there.
That's right, exactly. And it's one of those things of you also don't know what a normal father-daughter relationship looks like. So a part of me is going, I know this isn't right, I know this isn't okay.
Like a healthy one.
But, that's right, but where is that boundary line? Like, was sleeping in the bed together already too far? Like, you just don't, when you've grown up in a house or in a family that doesn't have a dad, you don't know those boundaries. You don't know, and you think, you were 13, you should have known better. Not if you don't have a reason. Yeah.
The child.
But I'm just saying, exactly.
Yeah, but that would be the last, and I'm a mother of children who have a dad in their home. At no point, and I know it's out there, people do this as we're about to hear, but at no point would I think that that's the child. Because when there's a parent-child relationship, regardless of that, if that parent's not reaching out, it shouldn't be up to the child to reach out.
No.
So that's just the bare minimum.
That's right.
Let alone it going that far.
That's right.
Would never be on the child.
So that's what I did. I wrote him a letter and I gave it to him, and he goes, oh, what's this? And I said, it's for you to read after you've left me. Like, we'll talk about it later, but...
How did you feel in that time? Because I
was shitting bricks.
The build-up.
I was absolutely shitting bricks. I remember, like, I think he dropped me off on like the Saturday morning and picked me up the Sunday afternoon or something. Like, I was there all weekend, and I remember not even engaging in whatever it was that we were doing. Like, I just remember sitting there going, he's going to be here to pick me up, and what is going to pick me up? Like, what is going to pick me up? Like, is he going to be...
in the car or something on the way
exactly.
home.
And like, she didn't live around the corner. Like, I'm talking a good 20-minute drive, which would have felt like 3 hours in that point,
I don't think in the car when you've got a conversation with a parent, it's awkward.
I know, because like, you're forced. Like, you can't walk away.
Having something this heavy.
Yeah.
And there's nowhere to run.
That's right. So, he picked me up the next day, and he was like, what on earth was that? And I was like, it is what it is. Like, what do you mean, what was it? He goes, I read it while I was driving, because obviously I had no self-control. I wanted to know what was going on. I read it and he goes, I had to pull over, and I was sick. Like, I spewed all over the place. Like, I had to pull over sick to the stomach at what I had done. I'm so sorry. Like, I had no idea. Why didn't you stop me? Why didn't you wake me up? Like, all these things. And I was like, and I remember saying in that letter,
did you feel sorry for him when he had said that? Like,
there was a little bit of guilt.
Maybe I had it wrong.
Yeah, well, not so much maybe I had it wrong, but...
No, because obviously he'll do what he do, but I overthought it all.
Yeah, it was sort of like, okay, wow, you really had no idea what you were doing. Like, that was okay. Like, and there was also that little sense of relief of, okay, well, we can fix this then. Like, we can manage this. You don't know what you're doing. You're asleep, so we can fix this.
And you said he was really sick from that. Like,
made him sick to the stomach. So obviously, And I remember saying in the letter to him that, this was once, I've now told you, but if it happens again, I'm telling your wife. Like, that's it. Like, I'm saying, that's what I can hold on to. Yeah. You do it again, and your wife will find out. And in my head, that was, if she finds out, it'll all come out. Like, it'll be a big thing. So that was how we discussed what happened. And there was a break for a little while. There was I couldn't tell you now how long. My timeline for that time is terrible, but I do know that...
Was the relationship still the same? It wasn't awkward? Like, it was still...
Yeah, it was still the same.
Yeah.
It was still the same. It was still...
So, going by that...
Yeah, I mean, there wasn't...
It's not going to happen again.
Well, that's it, because we intentionally didn't go ahead and fall asleep in that bed. Like I said, there was a gap. We intentionally didn't fall asleep in that bed, and we didn't for a while. You know, we made sure that at least one of us went upstairs to bed, and we made sure that, you know, we didn't fall asleep on the couch or things like that. But aside from that, we just continued what we'd been doing. You know, we continued building a relationship and bonding and having fun at the farm, and, you know, he was giving me all these things that I wanted in life. You know, it was... We had the pigs, and we wanted goats, so I got to go and choose a baby goat, and like he was building this lifestyle.
And had I not heard that story, just hearing that, why would you see that? He's just...
That's what I'm saying, and that's why I say
Dad would do.
That's right, which is why I say there is no signs from the outside.
And because he hadn't had so much contact with you, it would look like he's just overcompensating at this
100%.
It would look normal from the outside.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
He's just given her so much lost love.
Yeah.
Like, this is normal.
That's right.
Not
exactly.
behind closed doors.
So, and that's why I say, like, there is no way to know.
Yeah.
There is, and that's the scariest part about it, is that you could look at a 15-year-old girl and her dad in public and think, nice, you know, they're out for an ice cream.
Yeah.
When in actual fact it's bribery. That's a bribery ice cream. That's a shut your mouth ice cream. That's a give me what I want ice cream.
Wow.
And it took me a long time to put that together. It took me a long time to look back at all the things that he did and the lifestyle that he gave me and the things that he would say and go, they weren't real. That was bribery. That was keep you happy.
Yeah. So from not a young age, in a teenager, the next question was going to be, when did you realise that this was happening, was not normal? But obviously when you had given him this letter, you sort of knew.
That's
by the letter you were like,
this isn't enough. Yeah, and that's right. From then, you know, from then I knew that things had gone too far. That that it wasn't just a hug in your sleep anymore. And that things had gone too far and that this wasn't normal. Like,
what did this do? And again, up to you if you want to get into this. What did this do? Because you're a teenager. You've got hormones running all through your body, as any teenager does.
Yeah.
You are on this new journey with your dad, living your best life.
Yeah.
Best life.
Yeah.
And you really want to make this work because you pretty much just said to your mum, yeah, it's going to work, I'm going to do this. Your mum's handed it over.
Yeah.
What did this do for your mental health? Like, I can't imagine, I can't even, I got nothing.
I mean, at the time, I don't feel that I did suffer mentally. And that's more because even though there was a part of me going, this isn't okay, there was also a part of me that goes, it's also not that bad because those are only the night hours. Look at what I've got during the day. I love this, like, I'm happy with the school that I go to. I've got great friends. I spend my weekends at the farm. I've got bottle-fed cows in the backyard that I get to, you know, spend my days with. I have a great relationship with my brothers, and if
you outweigh the pros and cons of this.
Basically, basically it was kind of like, it's a small price to pay. Yeah. Like, I would rather this.
And I don't want to say you were okay with that.
No. Yeah, it was.
That was what got you through.
That's right. That's right. And it got to the point where it felt like a small price to pay. It was sort of like.
Was that heavy for you, those two?
It was. It was definitely heavy, but it was sort of like.
It was a small price to pay.
Yeah, you know, I can handle this. He doesn't know what he's doing. He's not doing it to me on purpose. He's not out of his way to hurt me. And everything, like, when we're awake, like, when everyone's able to make decisions, he's a great dad. Yeah. Like, I'm finally having a relationship with my dad that I have yearned for all these years and not had for so long. Why would I blow that out of the water for something that's uncomfortable? Yeah. But I mean, it could be worse.
And he wasn't, and again, we're going to cut this out, he wasn't having sex with you. So
well, that's right.
Well,
not yet.
No, that's not at this point.
No, that's right.
But he wasn't
something. Yes,
no, so it was just that. The rest of that could have been
100%.
He was asleep. He'd been drinking. He
100%.
didn't know. So it wasn't.
And it was hands only. That's right.
Yeah,
it was hands only. And something I've always said when I've had this discussion is
because I think a lot of people, regardless of DV or something like that, I find that when I've spoken to these women or people, men, whatever, people go, but it wasn't that, and this is how they didn't know that they normalised.
That's right.
They didn't know it was DV because They can hit them.
Yeah, that's it. You don't have a black eye, so it's not deep
so it wasn't that just yet.
That's right.
Essentially, I'm not
being abused.
Yeah, not.
And that's it. And something I always say is that what made it easier or made it, as you say, almost normalised was that he was never rough about it. He never pinned me down. He never forced himself on me. Like, it was never, I mean, yes, okay, it got to a point where if I started to move, he'd put his leg over my legs, but it never felt, again, it was more like a spooned hug. It wasn't, you know, like, no, pinning me down and this is what I'm doing. It was never rough and abrupt about it. So again, it's like, he's not physically hurting me.
Yeah.
It's not like I'm getting
Why
up
would
with...
you think otherwise?
I can handle this. Like, it's not...
And I even guess if somebody in your circle of friends at the time had said, I'm being raped.
Yeah.
You would not have thought...
So am I.
So am I.
Never.
No, you would have went, wow.
I'd be like, oh my
because
God,
they would
you're
have told
okay.
their story and you'd have been, well, that's what happened to me.
That's right. Exactly. You don't consider it rape.
No.
And you don't, at this point, when it's hands-on...
Or anything else for that
No.
matter. Because
Unless there is a penis being inserted, you don't consider it rape. Especially at that age.
No.
That's what rape is.
Yeah.
Somebody has forced themselves on you and had intercourse.
Yeah.
That is what is visioned. And I think that even now, that is still people's vision. Like, unless you've been in that position...
And there's one person I was speaking to not too long ago, that same thing.
Yep.
He didn't hit me. They're withholding money from you. They're abusing your roof over your head at this point. Like,
it took me a long time, even again further along in this conversation. But with my kid's dad, it was exactly the same. He never hit me.
Yeah.
Never left a mark. Never left a bruise. But that doesn't change that it was abuse.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, no. So that was sort of where it became. I'd rather tolerate what I'm tolerating for what I'm getting. For
what a
the
thing
lifestyle.
for a 13-year-old to carry.
Yeah.
I'm 43 this year.
Yeah.
I can feel my face getting red. So I'm just being like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And angered. And as a mother, I'd like to think if this happened,
Yeah.
I would have seen it coming.
Yeah.
But also I'm like, I want to like hug 13-year-old Tasha.
Yeah.
I want to be like,
it's okay.
why is somebody doing this to your safety and
your body?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It blows my mind that people out there do it.
Yeah.
So what helped you and empowered you to speak up when you did? Obviously you said that a friend had said something. Was it more than just, hey, you've got to say something? Or like what was the point for her to be like, that's not okay? Because I've told some stories in a group and somebody's like, and I've laughed. And that's not okay.
You laugh at your own trauma. Yeah.
Yeah, like then you realise it's a bit of trauma. So at what point did I can't remember?
There was a second time that you told.
Well, there was multiple. It continued.
No, but there was a second time you told someone.
Not in detail. So after all of this, as I say, there was a good few months of. Oh, I assume a good few. As I say, my timeline is terrible.
Do you think you might have blacked a little bit of that out?
Oh, 100%. 100%.
Yeah.
I have lost a lot of memory, and the way I describe it as well is, I actually don't have a lot of memories of what happened to me. I have the knowledge
for your safety.
Yeah.
Like, not safety, what they call it, protection of everything that's happening.
I have the knowledge. I know what happened to me, but I don't remember it.
Yeah.
And as I say, as time passed, we got comfortable again. It sort of got to, okay, maybe it's like, he was drunk. It was, you know, maybe that's it. So I let my guard down. And we started to fall asleep in that bed again. Or sometimes he'd come and, because at one stage I shared a room with my brothers, not because I had to, it was me that asked to, like they're 10 and 12 years younger than me, but I have never liked to sleep by myself. And again, I think that was a weakness that he was able to feed off, because I don't like to sleep by myself. I hate, still to this day, I hate being in a bed by myself. I hate sleeping by myself. And because of that, I asked to share a room with my brothers, and I did. And sometimes he would come in, you know, once everyone was asleep, and he would say goodnight to the boys, you know, give them a kiss and a cuddle and tuck them in, and I'd be like, oh, come and give me a hug, and, you know, and I'd ask him to come and lay with me for 5 minutes, like, you know, come and lay with me for 5 minutes, because I'm, you know, and it would start off, we would just talk for 5 minutes, and he'd let himself fall asleep, like, you know, or he'd let me fall asleep first, or, you know, and it was kind of a vicious cycle, because even though in the back of my mind I knew, you fall asleep here, there's likely something to happen, there was also the other side of me going, but I really just don't like being on my own. Like, I really like the company, and I really don't like to be by myself. And, having the boys in the same room as me was beneficial, obviously, but I wasn't always in that room. So, at one stage, the downstairs room was my bedroom.
Yeah.
It was my bedroom throughout most of the years that I lived there. It was only the toy room office for a short period while I was in the boys' room. But other than that, I mean, that was my room most of the time. So it was also so easy for him to go down there and nobody noticed because it was a room under the house.
And you said he was married at the time. Did nothing shift in there? Obviously nobody noticed, but how was his relationship with his
The
wife?
Relationship wasn't
Did that
great.
affect you? Did you then have a different outlook towards her? Was there anger or anything for her?
Not in the time that I lived there. No, while I lived there, her and I had a really good relationship. I saw her as my mum. I saw her as a second mum. We had a great relationship. I became very attached to her, actually, very emotionally attached to her. And they had their problems and they weren't great. And in the end, they were separated. But they say their marriage was rough. But her and I had a good relationship, which is why I truly felt that if it had happened again, I could go and talk to her and that she would be the help. That was the belief I had.
Yeah.
So when it did continue to happen, and when it did go back to happening again, because again I let my guard down, and it happened again, and after it happened that second time, and then it happened a third time, and then it happened a fourth time, and I was like, and every time was more. Every time was more intense. Every time was
what point did it become?
It built up. That's right. At this point, still, it was hands only. It was only ever his hands right until the end. And I say right until the end, the final 6 to 12 months. But this was ongoing for nearly 4 years. So,
why did you said that you were emotionally attacked? You felt comfortable? With your stepmom.
Yeah.
For her. Why at no point did you think? Because you did say in the letter.
I did. The reason I didn't tell her is because one day she came. Now, in the letters, I used to call them incidences, there was an incident.
Yeah.
Because the letters continued.
Okay.
We continued to communicate through letters. The first one was the big one, but after that, we continued to communicate through me writing letters because they weren't things that I was comfortable to talk to him face to face.
Yeah.
So, as things happened and progressed, I continued with the letters.
What were some of his responses like? Was it similar to the first?
It was always, I don't know what I'm doing, I'm so sorry, to the point that he actually ended up taking me to a psychologist. He took me to a psychologist for what he was doing to me.
And what was it, how did that conversation come up?
Well, he was seeing the same psychologist.
But what did he say to you,
he said to me,
to go see a psychologist? Because of what though?
Yeah.
Because of my incidents?
Yes, because of what's happening. I think you need to go and talk to someone.
And did he ever, because I'm shocked here, at any point did he think, and you're living it, so at any point did he think
she's going to say
something because it's the same person?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we were both
that's a big way to get your cover blown.
Yeah, we were both, and this is again though another reason that I went.
Because I would definitely, if I was him,
be hiding everything,
not recommending you to speak to some a third party.
No, he's not a mental health professional.
Who has a duty of care?
But not even a third party. I wouldn't be saying
talk to a friend.
He's Jill. Do you want to tell Jill what's happening? Let alone a health professional.
No. But he had me so heavily groomed by this point that I knew that I could talk about it, but I had to talk about it past tense. So I had to talk about it.
You were allowed to talk about it?
I was allowed to talk about it.
I say allowed, how dare you?
Yeah.
How terrible.
But he had reminded me that, I want you to talk about what's going on.
What was his conversation with psychiatrist and why didn't they do anything?
Look, I still have her name embedded in my head very boldly.
That's him.
Yeah.
And at some point, I'm sure, and I don't.
And better yet, you're both saying it's in the past, but you both live under the same roof still. So surely it's not in the past.
Or even he wasn't in the session with you.
No, he wasn't.
At any point,
back to back. He would go in for an hour, and then I would go in.
But that's what I'm saying. But at any point, did the psychiatrist say, "And this is confidential. Is this still happening?"
And I would still. I would say I was so heavily
just to try and probe because we're under the same roof, as a duty of care.
Yeah.
If she says
yes.
No,
it's been a while. No, it's been a while. It's been a while since it happened.
Mind you, it happened last night.
Yeah.
And it's probably going to happen tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you think that if I did say something, I would get him in trouble?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I wasn't able to bring myself to get him in trouble. If I got him
So
in
I
trouble...
feel like that was his way of saying, well, I gave you an outlet.
Yeah.
And I am sorry, and I've realised that I've done the wrong thing, and I'm still a good person.
And should have this blown up, and we'll go into this more, should have this blown up, I did my bit. I did my father in a...
Yeah.
Caretaker, yeah.
That's right. He was doing the
I
right
don't even know if
thing.
caretaker's the right word.
No.
Yeah.
So I'm like,
He's taking
I don't take care of my kids like that.
Not at all. So yeah, it was his idea to go and see this psychologist, and that's what we were doing. Like,
It's a bit narcissistic behaviour, isn't it?
It is.
Well, I done my due diligence with you.
Yeah, exactly. I've done my bit. I don't know what your problem is. Yeah. The reason I didn't go to her, and the reason that because I tangent saying that, we used to call them an incident in these letters. She came up to me one day and she goes, I know about the incidences. So he told her before I got a chance.
I still would love to know how that conversation...
I thought the story was that she found a letter accidentally.
No, she found him sitting on the edge of the bed in tears, apparently, supposedly, allegedly.
Allegedly.
I love that word so much.
Me too.
Allegedly. So apparently she found him on the side of the bed, in tears, holding a letter one day, and she goes...
Oh, this is so... This is so planned out well.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like he's thinking, this is going to blow up. I've got to, let this out.
Yeah.
And then I'm no longer the bad guy.
Yeah.
I've told people. And if I sit in the bed... Because in any household, you can
Your
sit on the
husband's
bed
sitting on
and
the bed crying. No one's going to slap you.
No, the wife will come and be like, what's going on?
Exactly.
Like, it's in my head, there's no sympathy. I'm just, you planned this well.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's what I heard. I've actually never asked her, but that's what he told me, is that he was reading other letters and got all worked up about it one day, and she walked in, and asked, and wasn't going to she was obviously not going to let it go. So yeah, she walked up to me one day. I actually remember standing at the fridge. I was standing at the fridge and she just walked up to me and she's like, just want you to know I know about the incidences. And I was like, oh. And that was a moment for me of, oh fuck, because that was my safety net and that's just gone. I can't use that anymore. I can't say, I'll tell her. I can't say it'll all come out, because she knows that she's done nothing. His mind consciously, this was always playing on his mind too. Yeah.
So now he's trying to...
He's got in before, that's right. He's got in before I could. And I remember having that moment of, if you haven't done anything already, then you're not going to.
Yeah.
Like, that's what that means to me. You know, and you haven't taken action, which means if I had come and told you, you wouldn't have done anything about it. So, because she didn't. And look, I will put out there, I have a good relationship with her now. I do. And it's taken a lot of years, and we lost contact. Well, not lost. We cut contact for a lot of years, and there was some ups and downs. But we did. I do have a good relationship with her now. But yeah, it was a moment of, fuck, like, and you're not doing it. But then there was also in the back of my mind of, well, in that case, maybe it's not that bad. Again, it's not rape.
Because she knows.
And
she's not taking it seriously, so why should I?
That's right. Like, okay,
adults, nobody's really saying it's bad and doing
that's it. That's exactly right. None of the adults in my life are doing anything. I'm seeing a psychologist who knows what has happened in the past.
I feel like everybody's failed you. Your dad, his wife, the psychologist even, like... Everybody that you've came in contact with.
Every time somebody hears this story, they're like, wow, there's a lot of adults that failed you. I'm like...
Yeah, like every person that you came in contact with there.
Everyone that knew what was going on went, okay. Which made me, again,
and also I don't know if it was just the timing of everything back then, because I imagine there was a lot of things going on now. Now we talk about it, so people would be iffy to act on it, and it's still happening. Yeah. It's still happening more than we know, but back then nobody acted on anything. Yeah. Nobody felt comfortable to do anything, because people were getting bashed in the home back then more times than we knew, and people would, I remember hearing my parents be like, none of our business. Yeah. Where now we're likely to be like, that's not okay.
No, make a phone call. We're not
knocking on someone's door, but we're going to pull the person aside and be like,
that's not
do you need me to help you?
Yeah. Or call 000.
In a moment, if you're hearing a bashing, you're making a call.
Yeah, nobody did.
I've done it.
It's none of my business, and you walked out with a black eye, and they just said, morning, went to work.
That's it, head down.
Yeah, so I think it was,
that's it, timing didn't help either. Yeah, exactly. So
people just thought it's not my business. No. I'm not getting involved.
That's right. So, it got to a point where, as I say, it was just normalised. It was just like, okay, and this was the life I was living, and it just kept happening. It just kept happening. And there was I can never think of her role, and I'm so glad she's not going to hear this because she would probably punch me for it. But she was a school counsellor. Her role was essentially to because it was at the high school. Her role was to sort of help get you into the workforce and get
a
careers advisor.
Careers advisor,
yeah,
maybe
yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was her role, and she also did other little things and other little supports and stuff. And I obviously would have met her through careers, through going through that, but I became very attached to her. A lot of time there was classes that I just thought, I don't want to do it today, and because of what was going on at home, I was just like, nah, why bother? And I'd spend my days in her office.
And this obviously affected you at school.
I think if anything, it affected me at school more than previous things.
Because I'm wondering if any teachers just thought you were being an asshole.
Most likely,
did they turn around and be like, hey, what's going on?
Well, that's it. Nobody did ask what was going on. Nobody did ask why don't you feel like being that's it. It
lazy and
doesn't want to do it.
And doesn't want to do it.
And just a shitty teenager that just isn't a
that's
shit
it.
mood.
And I mean, the reality is that's it. Those mid-years of high school, a lot of kids are going, fuck it, I don't want to. A lot of kids are going, why am I here?
Yeah.
And not paying attention. So it didn't stand out. Yeah. So I spent a lot of...
And that's the scary part again.
Again, this is what I mean. There's all these people. So anyway, this one particular, careers counsellor, I spent a lot of time in her office, and we would talk about things, or we would, sometimes I'd just take my work and do it in there, and, I wasn't exactly wanting to be surrounded by people all the time. And again, I would talk to her, but not in detail, and I wouldn't give away too much information because I knew that as soon as I told her, it would have to come out. So I was very careful about what I said, and I was very, until one day, because even after so in Tasmania, high school is year 7 to year 10, and in year 11 and 12 you go to college.
Okay.
So even after I left the high school and I moved on to college.
So you had stayed there for more than this 3 to 6 months to a year than you planned?
I was there for 4 years. Yeah.
And what was your contact with your mum like in that time? Because obviously it was
We spoke every, a couple of times a week. Obviously, had text messages. But I didn't go back to WA.
Yeah.
I don't think.
No, you didn't.
No, I didn't. I didn't go back to WA in that time. And she didn't come.
And that would have been the best escape because it's a whole new state. That you could have just got away and said, hey, go back to mum.
That's right. And it would have been easy. It would have been so easy. But again, grooming, people don't understand how deep.
Because I can read people out there like, you live in WA.
Yeah. Manipulation. The manipulation and the grooming is so heavy. And I'm talking... It was years after he died that I woke up, and that's what I call it.
Why did they not leave?
Yeah, and that's what I've always called it is the moment I woke up.
Yeah. Because
it is so deep in your bones that you're not able to see, 1, how wrong it is, 2, how easy it would be to get out, and 3, that getting out is even an option. It wasn't an option to me. As I said to you, the nights might have been hard, but the days were so worth it for me. That's where I wanted to be. The nights might have been rough, but the days were so worth it. He made sure that the life I was living was everything I wanted it to be. So why would I leave that to go back to my mum, who I didn't get along with, and I fought with, and I did get
boring compared to the life.
Exactly. He made sure of that. Yeah. On top of the grooming, the manipulation, the convincing, so. Yeah, so anyway, as I say, I ended up with this counsellor, and. I got to a point where, I was at the college and I was barely going. I was in year 11 and I was barely going. And I, used to message her, can we go and do lunch? Or because we used to go and have, even when I was in high school, she used to take me out for lunch. We formed an outside, probably inappropriate relationship, but the reason she got okay with it was because she could tell something was going on.
There's always that one teacher in someone's life that says, hey, and she obviously knew not to probe. She knew
That's
that,
right.
I think she wanted to create that safe space.
Exactly. And she did.
Her.
And she really did. She really did. I don't talk to her often now, but I still will every so often flick her a message.
Still? Oh, you still?
Yeah, I still have contact with her.
Good.
Yeah. And she laughs now because she's a blended family with 8 kids, and we're a blended family with 9 kids, and she's like, you just had to do me that one bit better. But, it's... Yeah, so it was her who because in the end I was actually living at the farm. So I wasn't living at the house with him. I was living at the farm, and he was spending most of his time there because they were going through a separation. So again, completely
Was the separation to do with what had happened? Or?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Mostly. I don't doubt that there was other issues, but it definitely played a huge part.
Yeah.
And her protecting the boys.
I have to say, because what about the other kids? Straight away I'd be thinking...
Not that she ever worried that he would touch the boys, but more protecting the boys of when this comes out.
And it will.
I don't want them to be a part of it.
Yeah.
So... But again,
I suppose she did what any mother would do.
That's right.
Just get out of it.
But he had me living at the farm on 50 acres, isolated. Like,
how far was your next neighbour?
Wouldn't hear me.
Yeah, right.
Wouldn't hear you if you screamed.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Wouldn't
so
hear.
that's a level of isolation.
Completely isolated.
Yeah.
To get out of the
Can
farm.
you drive at this point? You can't drive.
So, not legally.
Okay.
Yeah.
But we did have like some sort of escape. Like
we had a bush basher.
Could you do it?
Yeah, no, we had the bush basher, which he taught me to drive in.
Yeah.
But that's what I was going to say. To leave the farm, to get out of like the driveway and back to the road, you had to drive.
Isolation.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Is that you had to leave the farm, you had to drive.
Yeah.
You couldn't just walk up the driveway and be on the street. So we went out for, I remember messaging her a few times and be like, hey, are you free? Can we go grab lunch? And I was living at the farm and I wasn't really going to school by this point. Like, it was year 11, it was the second,
How were you getting to school if you had to leave?
Well, this is what that's what I was saying, is that with it being as isolated as it was, because we had the bush basher out there, I used to drive the car to the top of the road and park it on a neighbour's corner property to catch the bus.
And then drive it home.
And then just drive it back when I'd get, so...
Illegally.
Well, I mean, it was on private property, so it didn't really
I
matter.
imagine every kid that had a big
Exactly,
property was
all
doing
the,
that.
especially it's Tassie, like, for starters, but everyone was doing it. It wasn't a problem, but...
It's like you were driving it all the way to school.
Oh, God, no. I was getting the bus, but so I would drive up there, and when I was by myself, I would just drive up there, leave the car, and when he would stay, he would drive me up there, that way he could use the car during the day, and it was manageable, but that's what I mean. When I say isolated, it was... Nobody would know you were down there.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even like a house. It was a shack. Like, it was a shack made of wood. Like, you were cooking on the fireplace. You were using a bucket of hot water. Like, it was a derelict shack, which I say it's a derelict. I still to this day love the farm, and I'm heartbroken that I don't have the farm. But fact is, in that situation, it's a falling apart shack.
Yeah.
Looking at the big picture, and very isolated. And I remember messaging this counsellor one day and saying, you up for lunch? And she actually came and picked me up from the farm. She was like, yeah, I'll come and I'll pick you up and we'll go, and we went to KFC. And it wasn't actually until recently, like I'm talking last year, that I spoke to her and she reminded me of that situation, of that day, of that lunch, because it's not I want to say it's not the memory I had. It's not that it's not the memory I had. It's that I just didn't have a memory.
Yeah. And again, it's different things you have the memories of depending
That's right. And because I'd lost so many memories, I couldn't remember exactly how it all came out to my mum, to the police, to everyone. I just had in the back of my mind that this careers counsellor was the person who told my mum. That was all I could remember. But she reminded me, we were talking about it last year, and she goes, remember that day that I took you to KFC and we had lunch, I picked you up from the farm? She goes, that's when you and I spoke and we agreed. She goes, I didn't go to your mum behind your back. We agreed, like, you were happy for me to finally tell your mum. So this was
just like a normal conversation and you'd actually said, hey, this is...
Yeah, well, I mean, as I say, by this point she picked up what was going on. Like, she picked up what was going on. And
I kind of like that she came out to pick you up, because I'm imagining, now that you've said this, she's worked out something's going on, something's not right. I'll come out and pick you up, and then this is her way of like, let me just see what your environment is at this point.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think she'd been out there once or twice before.
She was very good at what she did.
But she was very good at what she did. And that is why there's a lot of people that still
One adult that didn't fail you.
That's it. Whereas there are people that still think she did.
Because nobody cared enough to even look where you were living.
Exactly. There's still people now who go, she should have done more sooner, and duty of care. And
I feel like she's done the most.
But I think she's the one person who did the most at this point. And also,
she went about it the right way. Rather than trying to force me to tell her things and then scare me off, or rather than trying to assume, or rather than trying to jump the gun.
I'm just thinking of like little things like, where do you live? What does it look like?
Yeah.
To say, hey, I'll come pick you up.
Yeah, and so she goes, no, we spoke about it and you agreed. She goes, you agreed, we worked it out that I was going to ring your mum and tell your mum because you didn't want to be the one to make that call. And then I took you to the police station and we had that conversation with the police and you did a report. And I was like, oh yeah, like, that's what happened.
Yeah.
And she's right. Like, I know that that's what happened. She's obviously not making it up. But, like, it was just one of those things that was a memory that I didn't have. It was very fuzzy.
Yeah.
And that's how it all came out, is that, and by this point I was 17. Was I 17? I must have been 17.
You were 17 because...
No, I can't have been, because this all happened in the October before I turned 17.
So you were still underage.
I was 16. I was about to turn 17 because I believe it was about October-ish, around there, give or take a few months. But it was, second half of the year, because as I said, I'd stopped going to school, really. At this point, I had given up and I was just staying home. And so, yeah, as I say, my mum found out and then we went to the police station and made a statement. And from there, the ball moved quite quickly.
This episode is to be continued. If you or someone you know is navigating any of the topics discussed in today's episode, please reach out for support. Links are below.